So when you first started getting involved with Wine, what was the state of Windows compatibility back then? Obviously, things like DXVK didn't exist, so
Oh, it was hot garbage.
yeah, I was gonna.
Like just straight up. I mean, you got to understand when I started using it, DXVK and F Audio both did not exist. We had to rely on OpenGL and
Mhm.
whatever worked in OpenGL and whatever Mesa drivers or NVIDIA drivers worked in OpenGL. Like you had, I remember I had wanted to play Warframe,
Right.
and Warframe worked on NVIDIA,
Mhm.
but on AMD it had some black textures
Mhm.
problems. So for the longest time I was using an NVIDIA card for it. And then I switched to AMD, and the first thing that I realized was, okay, Warframe is working, or I think it was the other way around. As AMD, they had a problem with AMD and it worked on NVIDIA.
Mhm.
And I switched to NVIDIA, and then I went to go play Elder Scrolls Online, and it had NVIDIA OpenGL had a problem with it had the same problem that AMD had with various black textures in OpenGL. And I'm like, shit, I just switched.
Mhm.
Like now I can play the other game, but not the original game I wanted to play.
Stick them
And it
both in
was
the computer. Switch GPUs.
it was dude, it was like that with like every other game that I would try. There were so many, even like native OpenGL games, like
Mhm.
Rage. Rage was another one.
Oh, I've not
The
heard that
original
name in a while.
Rage. Yeah. What was it? Wolfenstein. The Wolfenstein, the Old Blood and the New Order.
Mhm.
Both of those were originally those are OpenGL games, and those had problems. And I remember opening tickets for those. The original Divinity Original Sin 1, another native Linux release with an OpenGL version. Well, actually, I don't know if it was native Linux, but I know I had an OpenGL version. Um, but again, like all of these games had various problems that they
It
needed
did have an
fixed.
original native release.
Yeah. Another one, Dying Light. Dying Light has a. It worked on Ubuntu, but it's. I don't know if it still has this problem to this day,
Mhm.
but it needed a PCIe utils symlink for Fedora. It needed some other stuff done in Arch. I don't know if that's still a problem or not.
Yep.
I I opened a bug for the PCI utils problem
Uh-huh.
issue with Fedora, and I will just say I had an argument with that for a while, and I don't know if it's still a problem or not. I just at that point that was one example of what kind of drove me to start working on
Mhm.
Nobara of several. But don't get me wrong, they have Fedora. They have really great devs. They have some really nice people over there. I've had my qualms with them, but I also know some really good, solid people over there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not everybody is like that.
Yeah, yeah. Before we get into Nobara, when okay, so before DXVK was a thing, if a game didn't support OpenGL, was there just no luck getting it running?
No, it was DX. You had to open a bug directly with Wine, because you got to understand, if it didn't run OpenGL natively,
Mhm.
like a lot of the games that I just listed they had native OpenGL
Right,
renderers.
right.
If it didn't work natively with OpenGL, then it had to render DirectX to OpenGL. And at that
Okay.
point, it was rendering DirectX 9, 10, and 11
Mhm.
to OpenGL instead
Right.
of
Okay.
DXVK. And it
Okay.
still does that to this day.
Mhm.
If you don't use DXVK, that's what it attempts to do.
Mhm.
But these days, DXVK it's basically the answer for everything.
Mhm.
I think with their rendition of VKD 3D, they're trying to make that the new back end. I do not know the progress of that. I haven't kept up with it at all.
Mhm.
I specifically just keep working on the VKD 3D Proton fork and DXVK.